right now. And you will be able to access this class on our NKA YouTube channel. So wanted to let you know that too. Within the next day, we'll have this class posted. So I wanted to first tell you just a little bit about New Knowledge Adventures, which is a volunteer-driven organization and has been around since 2015. In the Treasure Valley area, we all take pride in providing lifelong experiences, and hopefully you're going to glean some information today. All of our presenters are also volunteers. No one in this organization is paid, and we're thankful for everyone's time that they give to us. So I'm not sure how we, the two presenters want to probably hold the questions until the end. They'll be going through a presentation that is a PowerPoint, and you can watch that along the way. If you'd like to ask some questions, please put them into chat. I will take a look at the chat and see if there's any questions that are pertinent to what they're discussing right then. But if you feel the need, you can always unmute yourself and ask that question. Or if you just would like to ask at the end, we're going to allow time for that. So we have two presenters today, and I'm going to let them talk about themselves. We have Dr. Lisa Hong, who's an occupational therapist, and we'll let her tell us a little bit about herself. And we have Joanne Trammell. They work together in a sense. They've done these presentations together, and Joanne has also been an occupational therapist for the last 25 years. So they know what they're talking about. I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves and the organization itself and this class. So go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Go ahead, Joanne.
I was going to say, let the doctor go first.
Oh, please. The doctor means I have a lot more student loans. But so as mentioned, Joanne and I are both occupational therapists, and we met because we both have this common passion for dementia care. And we've just developed a couple dog and pony shows, and and we've aligned with the Alzheimer's Association because we really believe in their mission. Their materials are just wonderful, and their website is so rich with information. So it's just a really good resource and a really good way to partner. So we both practice in Eastern Idaho. Joanne is with ISU, and she'll tell you a little bit about that. And I have a private practice in Idaho Falls where I do a little bit of everything. So, but definitely try to focus on this dementia care. So have some family, background with that, as many of us do. So just really want to help empower caregivers to be able to better handle the situation and find joy in the journey that they are facing.
And so, as Lisa said, I work at Idaho State University. I developed the occupational therapy assistant program that's in the College of Technology 5 years ago. And prior to that, I was a clinician and worked with any diagnoses you can imagine in the adult population. And I found a passion for dementia when I was doing home health. So, and then, over time, we all end up with a family member or someone close to us that has been touched by dementia, which Lisa and I weave those stories through our presentations. And mine was my brother that had alcohol dementia. So we'll talk about those things that'll be relevant to the conversations we're having today, which is Dementia Conversations. And so this particular presentation is bringing up some really important conversations to have with your loved ones, because driving becomes precarious at certain points. And doctor visits are something we look forward to and are anxious about, whether or not the doctor recognizes the dementia, or whether making sure you get the information you need from the doctor. And then finally, there's a lot of information to think about when we're looking at legal and financial planning. So let's get started. So yeah, like I was just saying, these are difficult conversations, and Lisa and I talk about this when we do any of our presentations about how to prepare yourself to go to the doctor, whether it's you yourself are concerned or your family member or loved one has what you think is dementia coming on, and how to talk to the doctor about it, deciding when it's and if it's necessary to stop driving, and making future plans.
And truly, most of these conversations are not just an if this happens, it's going to be a when this happens. And I try to tell people that in talking with the person with dementia about this, the earlier the better, because then they can be involved in their own care, and they can be empowered to make their own decisions. So just gives us a roadmap as caregivers to do what they would like us to do. So even though these conversations are difficult, they're necessary, and the sooner, again, the better.
Yeah. So this slide talks about the objectives from today's presentation. Hopefully you're going to have some tips on how to break the ice and have the conversations, help you figure out how to build a team and good communication in that team, and give you opportunity to hear from people. So there's some embedded videos in these presentations, and it's people that have gone through these same situations. So, boy, there are a lot of thoughts there.
Man. Yeah. And you know, we've heard many of these things in practice and with our own families. And I love the one, you're busy with your own life. That's my mother to a T right now. You know, you don't have to bother. And again, you know, people are independent. This is less about things like driving conversations. They're less about driving themselves and more about just that independence and that loss of ability and just letting go and grieving, honestly.
Yeah, and a lot of these thought bubbles are, you know, whether we're not sure that it's time to have the conversations, or people that start to kind of recognize in themselves that things are not clicking how they used to, will kind of push you off and say, you know, I'm fine, don't worry, just leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the beginning of how to have a successful conversation.
So again, sooner is better. If you wait for a crisis, we are not at our best to make decisions, and crisis decisions result in crisis answers. So it may makeshift the problem, but having a plan beforehand is really beneficial. So and developing the plan for using finesse, like and this is interesting to me because I just had a conversation with my mom, and she's not been diagnosed with dementia. But there are some things that make me suspect that we've got to keep an eye out on it. And we actually had an interaction where she was very, very upset with me and kind of lost it. And we had a big fight. So we came back together, had a conversation, and I said, Mom, how do we avoid this in the future? You know, how do we finesse around these? Because things are going to happen, you know, you're gonna need help before you leave this life. And so we were able to have this conversation. Now, I guarantee you, we're still gonna have butt heads and we're gonna have some fights, but at least I have a better idea of where she's coming from and how to approach her more successfully.
And also in that finesse is knowing that because sooner is better, because later on, they're not going to remember. And so just having conversations about, do you want to know? Do you want to, you know, where do you want to be involved in this continuum? And if they're like, no, I don't want to know, focus on the fact that there's some fear probably going on behind that. And it is scary knowing that you're going to forget and you're going to have issues that you're not going to really know about. And if we can accept that and embrace that fear, it helps us come from a place of care and understanding rather than, oh my gosh, don't you remember this? Or you're not the person you used to be, because they're not going to be the person they used to be.
I love this option here or this suggestion to take notes about the changes you see. So as I mentioned, I've just been talking to my mom and seeing a few things that are concerning to me. My siblings aren't seeing the same things, or at least if they're seeing the things, it isn't meaning the same thing. But if I can kind of keep a log of what I'm seeing, gosh, Mom, do you remember when you got lost when you tried to get to this appointment? You forgot to pay the bills on this date or, at this time. So taking a note, and it also helps in those doctor's appointments to be able to say, when did you start seeing symptoms, so that they can better diagnose what's going on.
Absolutely. And it also helps you have objective data that you can have it on paper to allow you to bring it into the conversation using I statements. I'm really concerned about things that are happening. And this is something I saw that happened, instead of you're doing this and you did this before, and it can make the person feel like they're being ganged up on. So it's just a really good way of having the ability to be objective and to bring it into the conversation with I statements.
Practice in advance. None of these conversations are going to be easy, and practicing ahead of time the way you want to phrase it so that they are those I statements, and so that you're not attacking or being confrontational with that person. You can do this with love and kindness.
And the attacking type of things, we may not think in our own minds how we're saying things are attacking, but the person hearing it may hear that tone. And so by practicing it with somebody else that, whether it's a family member, a neighbor, church family, that can hear what you're saying and give you honest feedback on how it's coming across to them, can be really valuable and help with that conversation.
And just to clarify the I statements that we're talking about, if you're not familiar with those, that really is, instead of saying you are doing this, this, and this, it's turning it back to you and saying, I feel scared when I see you, losing your way while driving. So
yeah, good. So another really good tip is kind of scheduling the conversation where it's like, okay, so after we both take our afternoon nap and everything, I'm thinking, can we just hang out for a little bit in the living room? I just want to visit with you, and trying to find a time when you're both relaxed and comfortable. It just really sets a tone. It allows you to come from a more relaxed situation and the ability to speak from your heart.
Definitely. But I've mentioned that my mom and I had this conversation, and I chose to take her for a drive to see the pretty leaves. And we were both in a car. We weren't in a public place. We could yell at each other if we needed to, but it turned into a really great afternoon. We got a chance to reminisce as well as talk about things that were concerning. So let's talk first about going to the doctor. Going to the doctor is, for some people, not bad, but for a lot of people, my mother included, it's like, well, you go to the doctor, that's a good thing for you, but I'm fine. So, and nobody wants to be told that they're not doing as well as they'd like to be, right? So we don't want to be told we have deficits. We don't want to have to face those things head on. So going to the doctor can elicit a lot of fear, some anger, and also some stigma. If we have a diagnosis of dementia, for some people, that's a death sentence. For some people, that it's very devastating.
Yes.
But the reasons we go to the doctor are important. We need to have that, especially as somebody progresses with dementia, we need to have that relationship with a medical professional to help with things like other symptoms that may happen, advances that happen in dementia research, but just general checkups. Because if we can be healthier, our hearts and our bodies healthy, it does reflect on our brain and cognitive health as well.
And going to the doctor sooner is an important way to set a baseline too with the medical professional, so that they can see the changes along the way as well. Bringing your loved one in after there's already been dramatic changes, the medical professionals don't really know where they were before the onset of the memory changes and symptoms and behaviors from Alzheimer's. So having that before, and as Lisa was saying, checkups are good because there could be other things going on that might slow down the process or might even avoid it altogether if it's a brain tumor or some other significant depression that mimics Alzheimer's. So it is good to get to the doctor. So we're gonna hear from Donna. So she's gonna talk about having a conversation about her loved one.
I think you have to be honest. I think that's the important thing. To get a loved one to the doctor, I think you just need to be candid and honest of what are you trying to do. We're trying to understand what we're up against. It's just so important to do that because you can't battle something that you don't know what you're battling. Yeah, it could have been, may not have been Alzheimer's. It could have been depression. It could have been so many other things. And guess what? There's other things you can do to take care of those issues as well. But that's what you need to be able to do. You can't ignore something. It's not going to go away.
So she's talking about just being honest and going forward with the conversation.
I'd also say that that during these visits, not talking over the person that has dementia is important. Involving them in the conversation. There are going to be things that you see as a caregiver or family member that they are not sharing with the physician, and that's important to share as well. But the appointment is about that person, and they should definitely be involved in the conversations.
Yes. So we're going to talk about tips about how to have a conversation with going to the doctor. So using words that are most comfortable for the person. If Alzheimer's is a scary, forbidden word to say, let's just talk to the doctor about some things that we've noticed happening. Putting it in easier words that take the stigma out of it, the fear out of it, can be really beneficial.
Most people are comfortable with the term, memory loss or forgetfulness. They'll take that over dementia or cognitive impairment or some of those other things.
Right. And so there's always a back door that you can use, and Medicare has free annual wellness visits. So you don't even have to really say, we're going because I think you have Alzheimer's. We're going because, hey, we have this annual free wellness visit. Let's just go and have that visit.
And definitely pair an enjoyable outing. I mean, if you've got somebody who's already a little bit isolated anyway because of some possible cognitive impairment, then, pair it with going to lunch or shopping trip or something like that, something that they enjoy. Nothing wrong with a bribe, right? We used to get milkshakes after the dentist visit, so nothing wrong with that.
Free milkshakes, right?
Right, right, sure.
So make sure that you open it up to the family, invite family to communicate concerns and questions to the doctor. It's important that the doctor is aware of everything that's going on, but also be aware that there is HIPAA, which is our health protected information, that it may go one way and not come back the other way. Once HIPAA has been established, doctors aren't able to speak with everybody.
But you can still call the doctor's office and say, I understand my loved one is coming in for an appointment. I would like for you to be aware of this. And they will take that information. They will not likely be able to give you information back, but you can contribute that information to them.
And just my own experience with my brother and his alcohol dementia with HIPAA, some doctors' offices are not going to be aware of the cognitive deficit that your loved one has. And they're going to ask them on a pretty routine basis, do you want to change anybody on your HIPAA form, or do you want to change your HIPAA form? And with my brother, he was constantly taking my brother and I off the HIPAA And so there would be times when we couldn't talk to the doctor, just because my brother would get ticked at us because he knew that we were doing the best we could to take care of him, but he felt like we were spying on him and trying to corral him into or pigeonhole him into a diagnosis, which wasn't the case. So talking with your loved one and getting their permission to have you on the HIPAA form, and then checking with the doctor's office to make sure that it has stayed the same, that if your loved one is able to go by themselves is when it can get changed without you realizing
it. And therapeutic fibs. We talk about this a lot in our communications and our behavior classes, but using a therapeutic fib is okay. You're not being facetious with them. You're not being conniving, whatever. Okay, this is to get them what's in their best interest. So if it's something like, hey, the doctor called and said it's time for your checkup, they may be more compliant to go. Or I may even place the blame on a sibling and be like, my brother's not going to give us any rest until you go and get this cough checked out, or something like that.
Yes, it is. There comes a point in the progression with Alzheimer's and other dementias where if we say exactly what it is we're going to do, and that it's going to be a block to the person that has the disease process doing what we want them to do, using that therapeutic fib or therapeutic line, going to their reality, it's meeting them where they're at, and helping them get the things that they need that we know is important. And sometimes it's not telling them flat out that we're going to the doctor to check on the progress of your Alzheimer's dementia. It's, we need to go just have a visit. Maybe you could say I'm going and I want you to come with me. And then the conversation naturally goes into the, how are you doing? And then all of a sudden the focus gets changed to your loved one. There's all kinds of ways of doing it, but please don't feel guilty about it. It is necessary. Oh boy.
This is a big one. All right. And know already that there are a lot of resources online to help you with these conversations too. AARP has programs. Hartford, other insurance companies also have information on their sites that can help you with these things. But driving is a big, big one. It's such a loss of independence for people, and it is such a blow to many, many people. But these are the things that you need to keep in mind while you are noticing any accidents, and not just accidents, but even just like little dents on the car that you hadn't noticed before, mistakes while they're driving. Oh, whoops, I accidentally ran that stop sign, or getting lost, having those directions, getting traffic tickets. All of those things, you can blow off one or two of those. We all have those bad days. But when you're seeing a pattern, and again, that's when writing those things down, keeping track of those things is important.
Yes. So Chris, we're going to hear from him about the conversation about his dad stopping driving.
There's no exact answer on this is when you stop driving. You can tell when coming up to an intersection, as an example, the ability to understand what's going on around you was starting to deteriorate a little bit. Being on the highway with cars on both sides becomes a little more difficult. And first and foremost, the safety of everybody in the car, as well as other drivers on the road. You think about that, and you want to make sure you're not putting anybody in danger. But then the difficult part is telling your dad, who you love, and he loves driving, and he's used to it, and he can no longer do that. But then even then, taking the keys away full time was very difficult. The doctor was very helpful and just saying, medically, you can't do this anymore. But my mother had the hardest time with this because she knew how much this was going to hurt him as well. And this is one of the first things that we had to deal with as a family when it came to telling my dad that he had to stop doing something because of this disease. That meant a lot to him.
A lot of people don't realize how much cognitive functioning it takes, plus motor skills to drive. And you know, it's not just the going up and down the road and staying between the lines. It's incorporating the visual stimulus coming towards us while there's people talking, the radio's on, possibly people passing and being able to turn. It's a lot. And when you have cognitive dysfunction, like we would with Alzheimer's, any of those things can cause somebody not to be able to focus as well. And that's why it becomes such a dangerous thing. It's just,
and it's natural for us as, yeah. And it's natural for us to lose some like reaction speed. It's natural for, you know, our vision to change as we age. And those themselves impact driving and should become a conversation at some point. But when you have dementia, that cognitive component is huge and very impactful when we start looking at being able to follow directions and problem solving. People will remember the actual mechanics of how to drive a car for a very long time. We are very blessed with that procedural memory, but they will remember how to get the keys in, they'll remember how to turn the ignition, they'll remember how to operate the car. But it's that problem solving component and direction finding, things like that, that is problematic.
yes. And I think everybody kind of holds their breath. I hope dad or mom doesn't have an accident. And that's kind of like the big event that we're trying to avoid. And everybody says, you know, I would just feel bad if they hurt somebody else, but we don't want to wait for that. So we want to plan ahead before an accident occurs.
Exactly. Yeah. Express the concerns that you have. I learned again with my mom that this is what our conversation was about when she blew up at me. But if you need to express those concerns and be upfront about it, because as Joanne kind of mentioned, this is not just about your loved one's life. This is about people they'll interact with on the road, and it's not worth killing somebody to maintain our independence.
And again, this is where the documenting the observations and then using the I statements. You know, I am just so concerned. I've noticed that things are different than when you're driving, or there's scrapes on the car, that sort of thing. So bringing it in, not you're driving different, or, you know, pointing the finger out always, almost, or usually comes with the person's guard going up, as opposed to I'm concerned. I have noticed things, using the I statements. And then appealing to their sense of responsibility and concerns from others. I know that you wouldn't want to hurt somebody else. I know you are such a responsible person, and I've noticed these things happening. So you know, this isn't something that we really want to do, but I know that you would feel better knowing that we're safe or other people are safe.
Exactly. My son actually came to a talk I was giving about driving, and he was like, "Mom, it's going to be really hard to take your keys away, huh?" And I said, "Yep, it will, but please do it, because I don't want to hurt other people."
Well, we hate having to rely on other people. Our nature as human beings, and Americans especially, is that independence in driving. I don't have to rely on anybody else. I have my own car. I can get there. I'm a confident driver. And even now, if I don't have a car, I'm like, I have anxiety. I don't want to put other people out. So that magnified by.
But Joanne, I think we're losing you.
All right, let's listen to Sheila.
Some tips on having the conversation is pointing out, especially for my father, the potential danger to others that it may cause if he's behind the wheel. And, you know, just talking about it from the standpoint that this is not only the best thing for you, but this is also the best thing for others around you. And these are some of the alternatives, making sure that, you know, this is what's going to happen, having a plan. You know, if mom can't take you, then Uncle Thomas or some, you know, will be here to take you, and we will make sure that you're getting out of the house and that you're doing some things. So, you know, presenting the bad news, but then also presenting the plan. And for my father, that's really, really important to have a plan.
Okay. Offer alternate plans for transportation. This one is a difficult one because, you know, we don't want to be dependent on other people if we don't have to. Sometimes, you know, like Idaho Falls, we do not have a very good public transportation system. And even if we did, it can be hard to navigate this system for somebody with a cognitive impairment. So offering plans can include things like, is your church group available? Are there volunteer organizations that are available? Uber, things like that can all be possible alternative plans.
And then incorporating the voice of an esteemed professional and have empathy. So when my dad, he had vascular dementia, and it came to a point where driving, I didn't think he should be. And so this was in North Carolina, where there are occupational therapists that do driving assessments. Lisa does this as well. I forced the issue for him to go through a driving assessment, and it makes you go through motor and cognitive tests to determine whether you have everything together in order to keep driving. And this therapist was able to say, it's not great for you. We want you not to drive in certain parameters. So you can go that route, or you can go the doctor route and have them write a prescription that you cannot drive. You can have them write a letter. You can talk to the Department of Motor Vehicles. There's lots of different ways that you can have other people make it their determination that they shouldn't drive.
Mm-hmm.
So here's Wendy talking about using empathy.
Talking to somebody about stopping driving, I think it's most important to understand that that is tied to someone's independence more than most things. And so by saying you can't do this anymore is like telling the person, it's like ripping away their independence. And that doesn't feel good for anybody. I know that I've always tried to put myself in that situation. What would I think if someone was saying this to me? You don't get to do this anymore. And how would I feel? And how would I want somebody to talk to me about this? And so if you try to put, I think sometimes too many people try to approach it as, very punitive. And I'm doing what's right for you. So why don't you understand, without really turning the tables and putting themselves in that position of understanding, how helpless that feels to take those things away. It's important to be thoughtful about what that experience is like for the individual.
I think she really sums up what Lisa and I have been saying about speaking to understanding their sense of independence. And we get that, and it's not easy, but this is something that's important.
So when we are looking to, when we have concerns about somebody to stop driving, again, we want to look at some options. We want to help them be part of that conversation and that plan. But we do need to have a plan on how to address that. And again, remembering the things that they can still do. Even though they're not driving, they can still go out and participate in some social actions. They can still go out and get groceries with some help, that type of thing. So
I know my mother and father-in-law. So my father-in-law has some onset, and driving is not, all of us are a little nervous when he drives. So my mother-in-law does the driving, and we just pump him up and say things like, you do such a good job at navigating. We need you in the front passenger seat to navigate, to help us get where we need to go, because, Barb, she can't, she doesn't remember how to get there as well. So father-in-law, please navigate for us. And giving them a job can sometimes offset the loss of independence with the actual driving part.
Absolutely.
So now we're gonna,
No, go. I was just going to say, and again, enlist that professional to help you with that decision. It shouldn't just have to lay on the caregiver. There are professionals out there that can help with this decision. So
yeah.
If you have any questions, please let us know.
Absolutely. So now we're moving into the legal and financial planning, and Chris is going to talk about that. And there are financial costs dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Financially, this disease will increase the cost of living. It's just a fact. So planning for those extra costs is that much more important than what you were planning for before. And so you have to review everything that's in place, see what changes need to be made, both legally and financially. And you have to monitor that going forward afterwards too.
All right.
This one's hard. And definitely finances and legal stuff is not my forte, but it's also something we need to discuss and figure out. We may feel uncomfortable and reluctant and very intrusive. It's really hard to jump in and say, I need to take care of your bills, right? But this is where we need to talk about it.
And again, from my brother's experience, getting the person with Alzheimer's and dementia, if they have their own checking account, banking, their own accounts for banking, if you can get them in the early stages willing to put you or somebody responsible on their accounts, it really does make the process so much easier down the road. Because so my other brother was able to have, my brother that had the dementia, all of his insurance and the payments and things sent directly to the brother that was taking care of things, so that brother Dave felt like he was managing, and we would always make sure he had like $20 in his pocket, so he felt like he had money, but everything else was done behind the scenes. And then when he did pass away, it just made everything so much easier for dealing with the financial aspects of his estate when he had passed away. So if you can get that done earlier, and then the other part of it is suspicion that you're stealing their money, which is very common to have happen. If you've had that conversation earlier, you can refer back to those prior conversations, and sometimes that helps with the suspicious thoughts. Okay, here's Julie.
Here's what I've come to after all of this. That it's the most loving and kind thing you can do for them is to be honest with them and say, this is like a really scary thing. And I feel a lot of discomfort bringing this up to you, but you know, I tell them, if you're going to be the one who's going to take them on this journey, then you have to tell them, I'm going to be here on this journey with you. And there are things that we have to do to get this in place. We're going to go on this journey together. I told you I'm going to be here with you till the end. So let's get this ready. It's like we're going to go on an ocean ship. We've got to get things packed up. We've got to figure out what we're taking with us. We got to get ready. And the things that we have to get ready, we have to make sure that we know which doctors you're going to be using. I need to get this signed, okay? So that if you go in there and they have to do surgery, for example, I got to have this durable power of attorney for healthcare for you. I have to have this worked out, okay? Now, if for some reason, okay, you need to go to rehab after something, I have to have these documents here, the financial stuff, so I can get these things taken care of for you while this is going on. I don't want to have anything get in the way of us being able to progress and keep doing this. I said, it seems hard because it's hard in our heads. You know, everybody's read about people who've stolen from elderly people, who've done these horrible things. But if you're the person who's approaching this with loving kindness and compassion, and you're willing to take this person on this journey, you're not doing a bad thing. You're doing the right thing by talking to them about it. And you approach it from the standpoint of, I'm here for you. I'm doing this for you. We're going to do this together. And I'm going to help you through this. And these are the tools that I need to make sure that we can do this.
So what I liked about Julie is she used I statements. Mm-hmm. She was full of empathy, and she was coming from what the loved one she was referring to of their sense of independence and just talking from her heart.
Exactly.
Okay, here's some tips.
I like, again, how she said, we're in this together. It's a journey. And it may not be an easy journey, but we need to plan. And so I love that that's the perspective that she took from that. So definitely make it a team effort. Get that trust, build that rapport. ask, oh, sorry.
I was just agreeing with you.
Okay, and then ask questions, gather those documents. Like Joanne said, there are things that will be making your life so much easier as the disease progresses. Things like power of attorney and things like, accounts and being part of, different accounts, retirement accounts, bank accounts, insurance policies.
Yep. And talking about beneficiaries too, because if those are not designated, then probate becomes a bigger issue down the road. Explaining that these are standard plans that everybody does. It's not just because I think you have this disease and everything, it's everybody has to do this. So we are in this together. We have a future together. Let's just sit down and talk about this because we are getting older and we need to have these conversations.
And I've actually had a conversation with my mom about it's like, Mom, I need to be doing this for me too. So let's do it together, because it's never too early to plan financial things. So
yeah, it's kind of like normalizing the conversation. And then you don't have to do it all in one sitting. You can break it up into parts. And even if it got heated in that one situation, you can move it to somewhere else so that it's not the association with the prior conversation might be broken up into somewhere different.
And then definitely involve others as needed. As she mentioned in the video, there are times when people are taken advantage of. And one way to avoid that is to have more than one person involved in that planning. And even though, like, my sister is helping my mom with stuff financially, and that's great with me, but she still kind of lets us know what's going on. Hey, Mom's needing to look at these considerations. So there are also, as I started looking at some of these things, there are a lot of things online, Pinterest and other places that you can put together like a death binder or a planning binder about different. They can give you a list of different forms that you might need, those questions that you might need to ask. So take a look at some of those things.
So this part is so important, is to start really consciously thinking about who is all going to be part of your care team. And while you might identify people on this team, they may not have to participate from day one, but just identifying for down the road of who all is going to be part of this team. And hopefully the core is family. But Lisa and I also have experience, because we do community education classes through ISU as well. And a lot of the people that come to that are coming because they want to understand it, because their other family don't believe that mom has dementia like they think they do. So family isn't always 100% on board. And I think a medical team partner can help with that sometimes.
And you can also employ a family or a legal team too. An attorney or a financial advisor can really be helpful here. And that way, you have kind of a neutral party that can be taking care of assets and things.
Peers, people that are their friends, people that maybe have joined a support group, and there are other family members that are dealing with loved ones that have dementia, and you can bring those people into your circle because everyone's going through the same process. And
workplace,
then, yep.
Just more peer support can happen there. Depending on, my dad worked in the same place for 30 years. So of course they've got some strong ties there. But, just looking at the context of that workplace.
But also, if your loved one is still employed, or if you are, sometimes there's what we call employee assistance programs, which I think of it as counseling right off the bat, but it can be other financial resources, planning resources, things like that, the workplace can be beneficial. And then the community, we often refer to like AARP or Area Office on Aging, community resources, support groups that are out there. They're free. They offer whether it's someone to come sit with your loved one while you get a respite break, whether someone else can do the shopping for you, things like that are great community resources. Oh, and there we are.
And speaking of resources, so the Alzheimer's Association, of course, is how we're aligned and with you today. And they have amazing, amazing resources. I don't know, Rick, do you want to talk about any of these or do you want us to go for it? Rick was without power earlier today, so.
He was on.
It's all good. We can go.
I'm on.
Okay.
It just took me. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the resources. By the way, I'm Rick Vogel. I'm with the Alzheimer's Association in the Greater Idaho chapter. As Lisa mentioned earlier, we have a very rich website at alz.org. And you can get on our website and find out pretty much any information that you want related to Alzheimer's or other dementias. You'll also find tools on there, such as our Alzheimer's Navigator, that will help one plan out, map out a plan to approach Alzheimer's. It's a tool that'll help guide you to answers by creating a personalized action plan that'll have information, support, and local resources. And then that's something that you can share that plan with friends and family. And also, if you want to, link them to the materials that are customized for your situation. So it's actually a roadmap as you get into this journey. The Community Resource Finder is an online tool. It's at communityresourcefinder.org. And you can search for local community living services or day programs or other medical resources. And basically, you just type in your zip code and it'll come up with those resources in that community. The beauty behind that is if you have a loved one or a friend or another relative that do not live in the same community, or you're caring for your family member for someone with Alzheimer's or other dementia in a different community, you can type in their zip code and come up with those resources and then share that with the family. All's Connected is an online message board, and there's over, last I saw, about 50,000 members. And it's just, again, a bulletin board or a message board where they share thoughts, questions, and ideas, and it's available 24 hours a day. So you can come on and read or post about any concerns or questions that you may have and be able to find out from others that have experienced those same situations, some of their thoughts and ideas and tips and so on. Probably the best resource that we have, I think, is our 24/7 helpline. These are master's level professionals that are there to talk any time of day or night, every day of the year. So as an example, I just looked at my watch and I have 10:55 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can call them at 10:55 a.m. or 10:55 p.m., or you can call them at 3:15 a.m. on Christmas morning. Someone's going to be there to answer your questions or address your concerns or give you tips or just there to talk. We also, on our website, alz.org, we offer education programs and we have listings of support groups that are going on in your area. The education program that Lisa and Joanne are presenting now is, it's available through AARP. Thank you, Marie, for recording this. But if you want to learn about other educational programs that we have, you can get on alz.org and find those education programs. I do want to mention one thing. Lisa and Joanne did a wonderful job of talking about finances and legal plans. There is an educational webinar that we offer that addresses legal and financial issues. And here in Idaho, our host is a certified elder law attorney. And it's a wonderful program if you need to explore that, but you can find out more information about that online. And that's part of our training and education center. So I think I pretty much covered those all, Lisa and Joanne.
Cool. Of course, there are a lot of ways to get involved in the Alzheimer's Association and further the cause here. Always looking for volunteers. It is a huge volunteer network. Most of the presenters that you see are volunteers. People who run the Walk to End Alzheimer's are volunteers. But we're more than just fundraising. We are also advocates for legislation that impacts people with dementia. The Alzheimer's Association is one of the biggest contributors to research in that area. And we have a program called Trial Match where you can get involved in clinical trials. They do need healthy subjects as well as people with dementia. So you can get online and look at that kind of thing.
And it just, adding the Alzheimer's Association to your team is really, really important, because there is just the wealth of information about that both Rick and Lisa talked about. And there are people there that get where you're coming from, and just being able to have that full care team with the multi-layers that everybody can talk about what's going on, and you can feel supported and held up to walk through this process with your loved one. Please remember the 24/7 helpline, and then the website alz.org is how you would contact and any questions. And then Lisa put hers and my information in the chat room. We're always willing to answer questions as well.
And would love to. So,
yes.
And so if you have questions now, either you put them into the chat room or go ahead and unmute yourself. We're a small group and we'd be happy to have you just voice a concern or question.
I have a question. This is Marie. There's so many different medications I've seen that are offered for people with Alzheimer's. I happen to have a sister who is taking 2 or 3 different ones. And of course, she does not see any difference, but I wondered if there's any way to find out if any of these medications have helped anyone at this point, or do we know much about any changes that the medications have shown that people have improved, or else they're staying at the same place? Do you have any of that information on your site?
Sure. Oh yes, definitely on the Alzheimer's site. There are some really great articles about recent developments. There's also an app you can get to that is, it's called ALZ Science Hub, and it gives you like weekly updates on things that are happening. But just to answer the question a little bit about medications, first of all, Joanne and I are not pharmacists. We're not medical doctors. So that is not our expertise either, but there are medications that are available. Most of them treat the symptoms of Alzheimer's and dementia, are designed to help slow the progression. But there's only one medication right now that's FDA approved for the actual treatment of Alzheimer's. And that one is still very, very new, still having a lot of research and testing going on. So most of the medications you're going to see people with are going to manage symptoms like anxiety or depression, some of those behaviors that might be happening.
Is there a time frame people should be taking these to really give it a fair try?
I was just going to say that a lot of the ones like Namenda and stuff like that, any of the anecdotal data I hear about of it working is when it's in the earlier stages of dementia or Alzheimer's, where once they move on to the moderate stages, it's more the behavioral type things like Lisa's talking about, depression or anxiety, some of the suspicious type behaviors and things like that. But the ones to soften or dampen the progression of the disease process tend to have, if they have any effect, earlier in the process.
Mm-hmm.
The medications that Lisa and Joanne are referring to are, again, as they mentioned, they're only to treat the symptoms. The one drug that Lisa mentioned is called aducanumab, or Aduhelm is the trade name, and it's made by Biogen. That particular drug is there to treat the underlying causes. and it is only used on those with early onset of Alzheimer's or dementia. It's a controversial drug, even though it's been approved by the FDA. They're doing a second phase of testing on it, even though the approval is there for the efficacy of the drug. The controversy is the drug as effective as the FDA said it was, and the cost. It's given intravenously, and I believe it's every 45 days. I could be wrong on that, but it's every 30 to 45 days that the drug is given. And it's expensive. It's about $56,000 for that treatment regime. And as a result, it's not affordable to us. And so the Alzheimer's Association is working. We're not working with, we are advocating to the FDA and to the manufacturer to get the cost of that drug so it's not cost prohibitive to the average person like you and I in taking that drug.
Also, Marie, we want to address a little bit. A lot of people will take, vitamin supplements and different like over-the-counter type things. That's a conversation that you should have with your physician. And again, a reason why you should establish a relationship with a physician. You will also hear people who have treatments for dementia. And I would just tell you to be very savvy when you're looking at those programs. Most of them look at like electrolyte balance, vitamin supplement, that type of thing to help with body and brain health. But as of the FDA has not approved any treatment that reverses Alzheimer's at this point.
Anybody else?
Does anyone have any questions for Joanne or Lisa or Rick that they'd like to ask out loud or in chat, whatever you're comfortable with? Well, I'm not seeing anyone at this point that is ready to ask a question, but I know you've given them your emails if they would like to email you privately and ask their questions. And then Rick, I don't know if you wanted to share the fact that you were going to have a survey that you would like the people to take.
Thank you, Marie. Yeah, Marie has a handout for this presentation that she'd be happy to send to you. And then also, we'd like to ask a favor. There is a link to a survey that Marie will be sending to you. This survey gathers demographic information only. It is completely anonymous. We ask if you wouldn't mind filling this out, this survey. It's basically a check box sort of survey. Again, anonymous, demographic information only. This information is gathered by Boise State University and reported to the Idaho Commission on Aging. It's just data kept. It is part of, we receive grants to provide education such as this. And part of that grant requirement is that we turn in data, again, anonymous, of those folks that have participated in these educational webinars. So please, it's a link, you just click on it. Please take a couple of minutes and fill that out. We'd sure appreciate it.
Okay, you had provided email addresses when you signed up for this presentation. So that will be the email address that I send this link to. And I will do that probably soon after this class. So you can be looking for that, and it will come from my email, which starts out with Marie. So you'll know who it's coming from. And if you will do that for the cause, that would be great. So with that, I'd like to thank
could I ask a question?
Participated.
Sure.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, go right ahead.
In general, I know that what are the early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's? what are the earliest signs?
Okay. Oh, you're looking at, there's several different things to look for. And jump in, Joanne. We have just some short-term memory loss is a big one. You'll see people who forget appointments, maybe forget to pay a power bill, forget to take medications. You might see, but again, it's a pattern. We all have a bad day. We forget stuff.
And it's not just forgetting, it can be making the payment twice or double dipping on the medications. Just getting out of the habit of what they've done for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm. You might see some things like, so people who are developing dementia are trying to fill in the gaps where they can't remember things. So you might see some like suspicious behavior. You know, if I can't find something, then it was stolen, or, you know, that type of thing.
Telling familiar stories, not the same, putting in different details. And it's, your gut is like, well, that's not how I remember it. But as Lisa said, they're just trying to fill in the blanks the best they can.
If they're still working, you may find work performance. It may impact some things there. We had our former mayor here in Idaho Falls developed Alzheimer's, and he said that when he stopped recognizing the familiar routes to work, or for getting meetings, relying more on a secretary, that made him more aware of a problem.
You might see withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
If they are normally a very social person and all of a sudden they're choosing not to do things, which makes you kind of like, what's up with mom or dad? It's because they know something underlying is going on a lot of times, and they just are like, I'm not going to put myself in that situation and be found out or embarrassed or things. It's really, it boils down to just these minor changes in behaviors and what you know as the person has always been, that make you kind of scratch your head and like, something's not right.
There may be a little bit of like a loss of filter too. They may be more emotional or explosive than they used to be, may have some difficulty with some word finding. But again, it's patterns of those things together. Isolated moments, not a big deal, but it's that pattern that we're looking
at.
How
common is it? Oh, excuse me. Sorry. How common is it for the person to be diagnosed themselves before other people?
It's not uncommon because you can tell when you're not, you know, in the beginning stages, you're like, man, I'm just not doing it. You may not admit it to anybody, but it's not uncommon for people to see a deficit in themselves, but they may attribute it to many, many, many other things.
Okay.
I was going to say that Marie sent something out from AARP. And if you get on their site, it talks about warning signs of dementia. And then also if you get on the Alzheimer's Association, there's a wonderful brochure called the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's or dementia. And it just basically will go into detail on what those 10 warning signs are. But as Joanne and Lisa reiterated too, it's any changes in thinking or behavior that interferes with daily life. And when you start noticing those little things, then it might be time to start digging a little bit deeper, and you can get on those sites and see some specifics.
Okay.
But
thank you.
Talk to the doctor too.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the information.
Anyone else with a question?
It looks like Rachel might have one.
Well, what about person keep telling the same stories over and over, and is that a sign or just?
That can definitely be a sign.
Called repetition. I mean, it's one of the behaviors.
If that's the only sign, then it may not be, but
yeah. So like Rick was saying, there is information out there through AARP and through the Alzheimer's.org of the 10 warning signs, and repetition is one of them, where they just forget that they told the story and it just comes over and over again, or forgetting the appointment. And when is my appointment? Oh, when is my appointment? So it is a sign, but it in itself is not necessarily.
Right. And looking at the context too, I mean, like I might tell I might tell my child the same story over because I wasn't sure which of my children I told this story to, right? But if I'm doing it maybe multiple times in the same conversation or over a period of days, that's definitely more telling. So.
And you have no recollection that you told it before.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else with any questions? Okay. Well, I think with that, we'll close. And I want to thank Lisa and Joanne and Rick for giving us their time today and all their expertise and answering questions, giving us good information, things to think about with your loved one, and to think about yourself as you age, signs that might come at you yourself, to be aware of that. So we appreciate all of you participating today. And like I said, this will be recorded and you'll be able to find it on the YouTube channel under New Knowledge Adventures. Also, I do have a copy of this presentation that was given to me, so I can send that out, or it has been sent. Let's put one of the two. And also I'll send out that survey that Rick talked about and would like you to fill out. So we appreciate that. And thank you again for joining us. There are other classes coming up this week. So please look on our site and you can still sign up for any of the classes that are coming up. We will be having these New Knowledge Adventure classes. In fact, we will have another one with the Alzheimer's Association that is going to be at the end of this month on the 27th, I think it is. Right now, you guys know the name of that. I'm drawing a blank. The class that we have, Rick, for the end of this month.
Oh boy, I have to look. You caught me off guard.
Me too. I just, it just slipped my mind.
Maybe this is one of those warning signs.
Is it healthy brain and brain?
I think healthy living for the brain and body. Thank you.
There
Lisa.
you go.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm facilitating that one. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll have that one will be on the 27th. So please plan to attend that one also. If you haven't signed up, you still can. So again, thank you for being part of our presentation today. And thank you for hanging in there with Zoom, because that's all we have to offer at the moment. We're doing the best we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.